Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Wealth for Real Facebook page, going live on Thursday, 5 October 2023. And just had some stuff I had to get off my chest, guys, about the national debt, some of the stuff I've been posting lately, about the size of the debt, the rate of accumulation on the debt, the post that I put up recently from Zero Hedge about how much debt had been created in the last 2 weeks, I think it was, or in a 24-hour span. It was something like that, guys. I mean, I posted it on a bunch of platforms, retweeted it, the whole thing. Just really, just absolutely unconscionable levels of profligacy. I mean, it's really reached the point where you almost get the sense that there's a comical aspect to it. Like the people doing it, they have no choice. Like, we know that, right? Like, they'd be committing political suicide if they did anything but print this money, right? So we know that. We understand that. If you're following this issue, if you're interested in this issue, you know that. But it's like, it starts to get to the point where it's like so gratuitous that you start to wonder, like, is there like a comedic element to it? Like it gets like, it's almost like, I can't think, I wish I had like the perfect analogy for you guys before I came on, but it's like, I would kind of equate it, this is not a good analogy, but I would equate it to, like, if you've watched like the old Popeyes cartoons, right? Like, the guy eats, like in real life, like when you eat the spinach and you consistently eat spinach over long periods of time, it has a healthy effect on you, right? Like it makes you healthier because you're eating greens and it's spinach and blah, 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 blah. But, it's not like you eat the can of spinach and, like, you're instantly fucking healthy, right? So, but in the Popeyes cartoons, like, Popeye would, like, stand there with a can of spinach, pop this shit open, pour it down his throat, and boom, like, his bicep would just fly out of his arm, right? Like, he just immediately grew like this massive bicep because he downed the can of spinach, right? So that's kind of like, in a way, where this whole thing now is going. Like when the Federal Reserve, when the government prints, $275 billion in a single day, it has that kind of outsized, kind of like exaggerated kind of feeling to it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, like before it was just a slow creep of like every several months there'd be another several $100 billion on the debt. And then every couple years when we check it, it's like a couple more trillion, right? But it wasn't like something that when you just looked at it, it's suddenly like, you know what I mean? Like where it's just like 1 minute it's one number and the next minute it's like eye-poppingly higher, right? So it's sort of like the can of spinach effect, where like this week, and I think it was on, let's say Thursday, so I think it was Tuesday that I read this, because I posted it like overnight, and I remember watching on Wednesday what the responses were to this information. But so like Tuesday, let's go with Tuesday, 3 October. The Fed basically prints $275 billion. Now, to put that in perspective, guys, it took the Federal Reserve almost 100 years to get $800 billion on its balance sheet, like from 1913, and actually let's call it 1914 probably, because they passed the bill, they passed the law or whatever in 1913 for the Fed, so it didn't really like start doing shit until the next year. So let's just call it like around 1914, right? And then I think in 2007, right as the Great Recession was like getting underway, it was at 800 billion, right? And so I think that was, it may even be later than that. Maybe that it didn't get to 800 billion until the pandemic, but I'm pretty sure it was a Great Recession. But either way, we're talking about give or take a century, right? But in like one day this week, in one single day, that amount of debt was 30% of it, let's call it. 33% of it, something like that, was created in one single day. So then, so Zero Hedge posted that, eye-popping, right? They also posted, they were kind of like, there was like a series of things they were kind of posting about this. I don't know if they did them all in succession or whatever. But the point is, then they also posted that we started the year at 31.4 trillion. We already, in October, we're at 33.4. So it's like we'd added 2 trillion in 10 months. Okay. And then at the current pace, when it posted the thing about the 275 billion, it said something like, at the current pace, we would add 1 trillion a month. Now, not to say we are going to keep up this pace, but hey, like, why not? Like we tried it, and looks like they got away with it, so might as well try it again, right? So don't discount the fact that they might keep this pace going, or might have to keep this pace going, depending on certain factors, right? So at that pace, that 275 billion a day pace, that's 1 trillion a month. And so then you think about, well, how long did it take to put the first trillion? Like how long until the United States was in $1 trillion of national debt? And I think, guys, don't quote me on this, because it's probably wrong, but it's close. I have a feeling it's close. Is that we didn't have the first trillion in national debt until the early 2000s. I feel like under George Bush II, we had around $1 trillion. I could be wrong. Could have been Clinton's later years, could have been Bush's later years, but I feel like it was in the early 2000s that we hit the $1 trillion mark, right? So that means that just to have $1 trillion in debt, now I'm not talking about the Fed balance sheet, I'm talking about just the country as a whole being $1 trillion in debt. That took about 100 years, right? 1914, let's call it the 2000. Let's just use 2000 as a clean number. So it's at 86 years to get $1 trillion of debt. And now we're doing $1 trillion a month. We're on pace to do $1 trillion a month. So this is beyond staggering, right? And so at $1 trillion a month, then we'll add, 12 trillion a year. And by the end of the decade, I think Peter Schiff posted this. I think he was using the same numbers. I just assumed he was using the same numbers. But if you did 12 trillion a year, and we've got how many years left in the decade? About 6, right? So that's 72. Now, he must have been using different numbers. He must have been using maybe like the current pace, not the pace if it was 275 billion a day. But he said there would be, his post was saying, at the rate we're going, whatever rate he calculated, he was like, we will be at 70 trillion by 2030. By the time we get into the new decade, we'll be at 70 trillion. So I don't think he was using the numbers Zero Hedge was using, because if you use those numbers, then you'd be even bigger than that. You'd be over 100 trillion. Okay, you'd be over 100 trillion because you're 33 and counting now, and in a 12 trillion a year, you'll add 72, so you'll be at like, what's that, 105 or something like that. So they must have been using two different calculations. But either way, I mean, what's the difference, guys? 70 trillion, 100 trillion, 200 trillion. I mean, what does it matter? And I think the other thing too, guys, and I'm trying to learn this as fast as I can. I don't feel nearly up to speed on this like I should. But, this whole thing about the treasury bond yields, the 10-year yield is now around 5%. There's something about that 10-year yield that's important, guys. I can't remember what it is. I don't know if it's like the number they use to calculate the interest on the debt, or if that's more of a composite of all the treasury yield. I feel like I saw it once before and now I forgot it. But the 10-year yield is super important. Schiff was harping on that. Other people that were posting around the same time frame on the same subject were posting about that 10-year yield getting way, way up there. So there's something afoot there, guys. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to factor that into my thinking as well here. But if you guys know, would love to see the comment. If you don't know, you can go research that. But something significant about that 10-year U.S. Treasury bond yield. So anyway, all I know, guys, is there's something about the scale effects here that's got to send the chill through your spine. I mean, the reason I'm doing all these, like, oh, it took this long to get the first trillion, but now we do $1 trillion a month. Or, we're doing 275 billion a day, but it took, that's like 33% of what it took a century for the Federal Reserve. The reason I'm doing that is because that's what a graph looks like when you see that line shoot straight up. right? Like when the graph is kind of like trudging along and it's going up and it's going up and it's going up, and then all of a sudden the graph just spikes. The graph just flies straight up, like almost like a straight line upward, okay? And it's like, you know, that's where we are now. That's where we are. And you know what I mean? And so there's something about that scale effect, that like staggeringly steep scale effect play. And so I just really, really think, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here, that we're in just uncharted territory. Nothing like this has ever been attempted or happened before. And it's just something we've got to be very, very scared of. Okay? I mean, I'm just literally starting to feel that way at a greater and greater rate every day I see this news and kind of digest this stuff. So anyway, guys, would love to hear what you think. Would love your comments and questions. If you know more than what I was saying in here, would love to hear it, clarify it, clean things up. If you don't, if this is new to you, you know, would love to see your questions. I can go out, research, make more content on that. But definitely appreciate you guys checking on the Facebook page, checking on the lives, and picking this content up secondary on YouTube as well. You can go find me Wealth for Real on the YouTube channel and subscribe over there. But I really, really appreciate it, guys. Let me know what you think of the content. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys soon.